I grew up in an incredibly volatile, violent, abusive, like shit show house.
You think you're looking at what you're going to gain by breaking the cycle, but what are you actually going to gain by subconsciously sabotaging yourself?
Right now, I'm a mom. Not right now. I'm a mom now forever. The old me would be like, I'm a mom right now and I might get out of it.
If you have an intuitive ping that you need to slow down, follow that. That is likely where you are going to find the thing that you are desperately looking for.
You want to know all your shit? Ask your child.
And that has kept me playing very small.
Within the last 3 or 4 years, I've been married, divorced, hit some major financial ruin, decided to put myself back out there after being single, celibate, and sober for a year and a half, meet someone new, fall so in love with him. And he happens to have 2 kids and their mom passed away.
When you're half in, you've got that like kind of safety net of not having to sit with the discomfort.
It's everything you dream of, really. And then you get it and you're like, this is a lot.
Our nervous systems are safe with the familiar, but the familiar isn't necessarily what is best for us long term.
I've been so accustomed to just being able to ignore stuff and to walk away. But this one, we're all in. And this has been one of the toughest times in my life.
Hey wild ones, welcome back to Too Much, Not Enough. I'm your host Hannah. Let's get messy and magical together. Today's conversation is about something that feels extremely present for me at the moment and really has been since I shut down my lucrative event production business late last year and finally stepped into the identity of being a speaker, a podcast host, and a somatic alchemy coach. In fact, what we are talking about in today's episode is the very reason this podcast exists. I had been waiting for the right number of followers or for someone to recognize me and hand me the opportunity I was waiting for. And through my recent work with my coach, who very excitingly is joining us today, I realized that I was in fact the most qualified person to create these opportunities for myself. So I took another big leap in my life, which I have done a few times before, but this one's perhaps the biggest yet. And I did it. I started this podcast. I stepped into being a speaker, and I am on my way to really building out my new business, Soma. I am in the midst of betting on myself big time. And with that comes a shit ton of excitement and also some pretty uncomfortable feelings, which we'll talk about. Today's guest is my coach, Kathryn Ducey, who knows intimately what it is like to bet on yourself over and over again. She has been a consistent inspiration since we first connected in early 2020. She has been a massive permission slip writer in my life and the lives of hundreds, if not thousands of others. Kathryn is a master life coach and the host of the Brutally Honest podcast. She dives into life's messy truths with raw honesty and big energy. Having empowered hundreds of women to break free from childhood patterns and build thriving relationships, she is here to call it like she sees it and inspire you to own your power. Welcome, Kathryn. How are you today?
Man, no one's ever read that out loud to me before.
I was wondering if that was the case. It's exciting.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was so cool. I am amazing, cutie. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm so excited to be chatting to you. Kathryn and I recently did like a 3, almost 4-month container together. So we were talking every day, and that ended just under a month ago. And so we went from talking a lot to not having as much connection. So I'm just really excited to be back in your presence, even if it is virtually.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you are, for those who are listening, you're the first person I'm having a conversation with outside of my family in the last 3 weeks because I've been away in Costa Rica.
Which is so crazy. And we're definitely going to get to that because I think from what I saw online and our like very minimal chats, I think it was pretty life-changing for you and the family. So we're definitely going to chat about that later on the episode. But first, for those who are not familiar with you, do you want to give a little bit of like kind of an overview?
Yeah, happy to. I like to take people on a journey or a little bit of tell a story. So I think that's helpful. I'll start with at the age of 33. So just over a decade ago, because I'll be 44 this year, sort of felt like something I needed some help. I needed to go and talk to someone because my life just felt very chaotic and hectic all the time. And I was watching my friends, and how they were able to maintain relationships, romantic partnerships for longer than me, or were moving on to have children or get married and buy homes and all that stuff. And not that those were benchmarks for, whether you're thriving in life or not, but I felt like something was happening for me because finances were a mess, romantic partnerships were a mess. I didn't want babies, like losing my hair. There's all kinds of shit. And I ended up getting a referral to go to a therapist. And her name was Shelly. And I went and did my first session with Shelly. And for about 45 minutes, she just let me tell my life story. And at the end of the 45 minutes, she had taken a bunch of notes, as they do. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of notes there, Shelly. Do you always write all those things down? And at the end of it, she was really kind and really loving. And she looked at me and she said, are you aware that you experienced quite a bit of childhood trauma? And that was my sound. I went, okay. And part of me was like, no, because I had no idea what that could look like, because all I knew was what I had grown up in, and that felt very normal. And I assumed that you and everyone else had grown up in the same household. But I also knew that something didn't feel right. And it was sort of this permission slip. And you talked about permission slips in the beginning. I gave you a permission slip and I give other women. Well, Shelly was this permission slip where I thought, oh my God, I knew something was up. And she invited me back for the next week. She said, are you available? I said, yeah, I'll come back. And so began this journey just over a decade ago of understanding that I had grown up in an environment that was very volatile. The rules came before the connection. There was a lot of stuff going on. And I started to really take a look at this, unpack it, get close to it. And it started to make its way into my career. So at the time, I was a recruiter, and I was supposed to meet 10 people a week to put them into our system at the time, so that the other recruiters could also maybe go in and, I would interview Hannah, and then someone would say, hey, I've got this great marketing gig or a great speaker gig. And I'd say, I've got the perfect candidate for you. Her name's Hannah O'Donovan. You've got to meet her. And I've already written all these notes on her. So I had to do that for 10 people a week. But what was happening was I'm sitting in these interviews and I'm listening to people, and I have this gift that I didn't know that I had, where I can see people's real selves, and then I can also see the narrative that they've developed from childhood that's suppressing their real self. So I was like, oh my God, this is really cool and also exciting and kind of overwhelming. Like, we're all in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Holy crap. And from there, I moved through a couple of different agencies where I was a recruiter, executive headhunter, and then I was the head of HR at a really amazing advertising agency in Toronto at the time. And I was overseeing 200 people. And I couldn't wait to get my foot in the door there, because I was like, 200 people that I'm going to get close to and interview and understand their background and whether they really wanted to be a copywriter or not. Maybe they wanted to build houses, and I'm going to help them. And, I was so stoked. But at the same time, my executive team, who I was a part of at the time, had a different idea for my job, which would be policy writing. I was the head of HR, writing policy books and, getting us certified for safety standards and all this stuff that I knew really nothing about or cared very little for. And so after 11 weeks of scaring the pants off them, I ended up interviewing about 50 of our 200 employees very intimately in all these boardrooms. They would see me going into these boardrooms one after the other, and people coming out either in tears, but like in a joyful way, or enlightened, or quitting. And I was on top of the world because I was like, I'm making a real impact. But for them, that wasn't a real impact. That was a real hindrance to the biz.
Right. Yeah.
Which I get now. I got that at the time too. So after 11 weeks, I was handed my papers. The head of HR handed her papers, walked out of this office, and I literally was so excited because I knew I'd done something good, and I knew that they were in the right to let me go. And I'm waving at people and I'm hugging them and I'm like, it's gonna be great, guys. And within a few days, I started to get messages from some of my employees and saying, would you coach me?
Amazing.
And that's where that really started. Funny, I just said that at 11:11.
I also have
Will you
goosebumps.
coach me?
So there's something.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. And I didn't have a clue what that meant necessarily in terms of, because I didn't know much about business. I'll put that in quotations. I didn't know much about business, according to what you learn in business school.
Right.
But I had a real sense for, I know there's a problem. And if there's a problem that you can solve, you have a business already, basically. And people were coming to me and I was like, that's a really good sign. And I'm really passionate about this. That's how my career in life coaching started. That was 2018. Literally, I took a month off. I worked with a coach at the time. He just got me into like my childlike wonder. He had me spending most days quiet, off socials, reading books, going to museums, going on bike rides. Like, he's like, look, you've got to detox you've been in corporate for a long time. And if there's any advice I can give you is like, just take a month to chill. Meanwhile, I was like, I didn't tell him this at the time, but I'm like, dude, I'm $100,000 in debt. I couldn't tell him that though, because I was so ashamed.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, what do I do here? But I just trusted in God, and I had faith, and I had faith in him. He was actually quite spiritual, quite religious, in fact, like goes to church. And so I felt like I was in good hands. Like, it's almost like God delivered me, Derek.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a very beautiful time. And from there, I started meeting clients. And, this is where I think ignorance is kind of bliss. And you and I have talked a little bit about this, Hannah. I wasn't comparing myself to anyone at the time. Coaching was still kind of new. In my circles, there have been life coaches for decades. So I don't want to dismiss the people who have kind of paved the way for you and I, or me as a life coach. But life coaching, the coaching industry in and of itself, like, it grew exponentially with the pandemic.
yes.
So this was pre-pandemic times. I followed like 2 coaches online, and I was making it up as I was going along. And, ignorance was bliss. I was meeting people at cafes and talking about really private stuff while, other people were enjoying a cortado or a Americano next to us, and people trusted me. They're like, well, if she thinks this is okay, it is. And, I think that also goes with sort of my brand of rewriting the scripts and giving people permission slips not to hide their shame. You don't have to hide this stuff. So there were so many seeds that I was planting at the time that I couldn't really see, but it ended up being exactly where I needed to be, right place, right time, before the industry really took off. And that's really how I got my foot in the door as a life coach.
That's amazing. And I can attest to a lot of what, you just said there, but 2 main things in that: your ability to like see people and what they need sort of right away in like a scarily quick way. When Kathryn and I first met in person, we met in a coffee shop, and Kathryn was the first person to say to me, I don't think you are meant to be in events. And I remember being pissed off. I was like, listen, I know the universe is telling me that I need to pay attention to this woman and what she has to say. But like, I've been in events for like almost a decade at that point. I had just in the last like year and a bit started my own business, gone out on my own. I was really working on getting things off the ground and things were going well. And I was like, what is she talking about? But looking back, I already knew that it wasn't right for me, but I couldn't at the time. I was like, I'll take the other stuff that she's saying, but not that thing. But she saw right away, and she was the first person to ever say it to me. And here I am now out of events, and Kathryn was 100% right. And the second thing I'll attest to is that the number of like intimate conversations, seemingly private conversations I've now had in public places. I don't think I even realized it until you just said that there, Kathryn, that like, you've kind of given me that like it's okay. Like, we don't need to hide everything behind closed doors. And that's almost like a beautiful, like, metaphor or representation for how much more like authentic and open I've gotten, that I will just have conversations about all these things where I know people can probably hear me. And now I'm actually kind of excited that they might hear me, because it might then give them permission to be like, oh, well, if she's talking about this in public, then I shouldn't be carrying as much shame around it as maybe I am. So talking about permission slips, those are two huge ones.
Yeah. Talk about also how big of a jerk I can be sometimes when I first meet someone and I'm like, listen, who you think you are isn't actually who you are.
This is not what I was expecting, but okay. And listen.
Yeah. And by the way, I have not taken on any new clients. Good luck.
Exactly. Yeah, good luck. I'm just going to send you off with that huge life-altering piece of information, and you just like deal with it. But it is, and it's like, and we've talked about this over and over again. And, you know, I've said publicly before that there's been, over the number of years that we've known each other and I've been following you, I've unfollowed you on Instagram. You have definitely, you know, with how you're living and what you're saying at different seasons of your life, have picked at parts of me that I was not ready to face and, you know, had to kind of step away. And I think that that's a beautiful part of this whole conversation, is that like people in general, but especially people online, are going to create discomfort in you. And in a lot of cases, that's because they are showing you something that you need to see. But if you're not ready in the moment, that's okay. You don't have to force yourself. It's just noticing, you know, taking stock and being like, okay, that's maybe something that I need to come back to, because clearly I am all riled up over, you know, what so-and-so just said or how they're living. And when I'm ready, I will come back to it. But that not being ready right now is kind of okay.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite phrases that I think I need to get tattooed on my face is "spot it, you got it."
Yeah.
Spot it, you got it. And I, of all people, shouldn't dislike that statement, but I dislike it a lot. I use it constantly, but it is so annoying. The whole thing about, you know, we grew up with wonderful parents who were doing the best that they could, and I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started this podcast off by saying I grew up in an incredibly volatile, violent, abusive, like shit show house. My parents should not have had kids. And I can say with, you know, a lot of heart and a lot of compassion, my parents did the best that they could. And that is not spiritually bypassing or anything. I've done a lot of work at this point. But what ends up happening is the real you, the authentic you, really triggered your mom and or your dad or your sibling or whomever it was, because they also grew up having to hide and protect their real selves from their parents, unbeknownst to them and unbeknownst to their parents. And then, you know, the way in which we rediscover those parts is by other people expressing those parts in front of us, whether it's online or, you know, it's a friend or a colleague or someone just out in the wild, or your kids or your partner.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God, what is that? What is that? And typically it'll be that what that is a part of you that exists, that you grew up thinking is not good enough, or is weird, or is too much, or is aggressive, or whatever it is. The best way to do this work is to look in the mirrors of other people. And you mentioned unfollowing me on Instagram. I have unfollowed so many people at this point, coaches included, who I've ended up working with. My current mentor, Shoshana Raven, I was like, okay, I've had enough of you. What are you doing, woman? Right? And I had to unfollow Shosh, and then I came back to her. And it's usually those people that you end up working with, right? They're the best people for you. And I got to tell you, like, I'm a new mom. I became a full-time step parent to two girls last summer. It was July the 3rd that I moved in with my partner, Michael, and became a full-time mom, because their mom actually had passed away the year prior. So there is nobody else raising these girls except for Michael and I. And the spot it, you got it, as someone who grew up in the home that she did, and had to hide all aspects of herself. I've been performing since I was like 6 weeks old.
Yeah, which is
I've been
wild.
on, I've been a total performer. I didn't know. Like I've been defrosting for the past decade since I met Shelly, and she was like, "Girl, you're a wreck. I need a new notebook for you." But then insert the girls, and the spot you got it's are insane. And you know how much I just want to unfollow them? I want to unfollow them, and I can't.
Well, and that's where the real teachers come, because as much as, you know, in the online world, you can say, not yet, thank you very much, I'll come back to this. In the real world, that's not so much of an option, especially when it comes to partner and kids. You know, I am hopefully will become a mother soon, but not yet. But I can speak to the partner piece is like, they will reflect so much of your shit back to you, and you think you've done the work, and then all of a sudden you're like, I have so far to go. And that is the beauty of the ride, and it's the beauty of becoming intimate with a partner, and, you know, also having that connection with children where they just like fully rely on you to, you know, live their lives. But like that's, you can't just like walk away from that and be like, oh no, sorry, I'm just going to take a social media break. Like there's not like a full parenting, you know, switch off.
There isn't. And what I've learned is you'll go to your secondary defenses. So if your primary is to run, to leave, to escape, nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's because our systems are flooded and no one taught us how to work with those big feelings, right? They scared our parents. So our parents maybe said, don't be afraid. It's fine. You're good.
You're okay. You're fine.
You're okay. Right. Or they just ignored you, right? There's all kinds of things. So you'll move into your secondary and your third defenses. And that's been what's been most shocking for me. I've been so accustomed to just being able to ignore stuff and to walk away or to delete, unfollow, mute, as you put it, leave the relationship. But this one, we're all in, right? And this has been very enlightening for me, and also one of the toughest times in my life. You know, I've been through a lot, which we can get into at some point, but this takes the fucking cake.
Well, and I think that has an element to do perhaps with the all-inness of it. Because when you are half in, which can happen in relationships, jobs, following your dreams, when you're half in, you've got that like kind of safety net of not having to sit with the discomfort to the extent that you do have to when you are all in on something. Because when you are saying, no, this is what's happening and this is where I'm going, I'm building a life with this person, this is the career that I want, and if it fails, I don't want to do something else, so I have to sit in the discomfort of this. And when we don't have that escape route or escape mechanism, and we haven't learned in our nervous systems how to hold that discomfort, then you are getting a pretty harsh lesson, because you're like, well, I've taken my safety net away by saying, yeah, you're my person, we're going to be in this forever. Which for me previously in a relationship would be like, yeah, we could be in this forever, but like, I don't know, fingers crossed behind my back, I don't know, we'll see, I could probably leave at any point if I wanted to, versus being like, no, there's no plan B here. I love this person, I'm obsessed with them, I want to spend the rest of life with them. Shit. Now I have to actually face the stuff that previously I was able to like half face.
Exactly. So, you know, the theme of this podcast was about going all in.
Yeah.
Right? Going all in on yourself. And, you know, we can go into business here and going all in on your dreams of leaving, you know, your gig, which was event planning, and, you know, discovering that you had this really insanely cool and important gift, right? Somatic channeling, and taking that leap. And, you know, what you probably have seen and what I know now, having been in business for myself for 8 years, is things take time, right? So
they sure fucking do.
They take time. And that's in everything in life, unfortunately, fortunately, right? We are also used to that instant gratification, that I admit I thought that things were going to go differently with the kiddos than it has, and that instant gratification, all that stuff. You know, going all in for me looks a lot different than it did even a month ago, and then what it did a few years ago, because If we look back so I'm of the philosophy that who you are today is part nurture, right? What happened with your parents and the environment you grew up in, and then is also part spiritual. Your soul came to this body, chose your parents, chose the experiences and circumstances because it is here to fulfill on some sort of an agenda to learn the lessons that it needs to. Right?
Totally
so part
agree.
of this is spiritual and part of this is nurture. Right? So my soul was meant to come here and experience a lot of challenge, like right out of the gate, and to go through what it went through. And I had this feeling, Hannah, I know I've told you this before and I've shared this with other people. I just knew that something was going to happen in my early 40s. I've always had this, and I don't think I really talked to anybody about it, but something told me something's going to happen in your early 40s. And I didn't know if it was going to be good, bad. I don't know. I didn't know anything. And, within the last 3 or 4 years, I've been married, divorced, hit some major financial ruin, decided to put myself back out there after being single, celibate, and sober for a year and a half, meet someone new, fall so in love with him. He's like the best person on the planet. I'm obsessed with my guy, my dreamy guy, as I call him. And he happens to have 2 kids and their mom passed away. And it's like, holy shitballs, there's a lot here. And for me, going all in on myself is, well, how you do anything is how you do everything. I have a lot of stuff that I've been running from since I was a kid, including people. I've been on the run for a long time because I never got to connect with my parents. The way to stay connected to my parents was to be really independent and self-sufficient. When I could take care of myself and have my shit together at a really young age, then things were good. So my inner child is like, I'm not gonna get married or have children or have a family and have any sort of dependence on anybody or take care of anybody, because then I can't connect with my family anymore. I need to play that role.
Wow.
Right.
Huge.
Massive epiphanies for me, right? Like the best days were almost, and kind of like, we talk about existential kink. Like I get off on calling my mom and saying the relationship's over.
Like literally so huge, I think, to acknowledge things like that like, because we're all generally, and especially like you and I and kind of the circles and networks we work with and exist within, are very interested and engaged with healing and growing and becoming the best versions of ourselves and being able to experience life in its full spectrum. I think that's a human thing, but especially in the coaching space, that is like basically what you focus on all day, every day. And to admit that you might be keeping yourself from like breaking a cycle or moving on because there's that, what I've kind of recently been introduced to, the concept of secondary gain. It's like, what are you going to gain by staying where you are? Like you think you're looking at what you're going to gain by breaking the cycle and moving forward, but what are you actually going to gain by subconsciously sabotaging yourself? And that is what you just said. There is a huge aha moment. Like, how do I stay connected to my family, these people that you have a bond with that is beyond perhaps the experience or how it looks on paper, if I break the contract essentially that I have been playing with them the whole time? And that, I think, can be such a massive thing. I funnily enough have just recently gone through a similar kind of thing with my family, and having these kind of ahas of like, I don't want to default to the way that I engage with my family and have for so many years. And I think what we bond over, which many humans do, is struggle and disappointment and just challenge and things like that. And I'm like, I don't want to anymore. I don't want to constantly talking about the stuff that's not working or whatever. Like, I just want it to be easier. But I realized that if I don't commiserate with them, how do I maintain my bond with them?
Wow. Yeah. So long as you leaned into what was wrong with something versus what was right, then the connection stayed right? On some level. Like, we're all just trying to survive. And you will figure out 2 or 3 ways to survive, right? Like, basically inside the womb. Because some of this starts inside the womb. And if you understand childhood development and you understand the different childhood development stages, which is stuff that I focus on with all my clients, and I now get on a whole new level because I'm a mom, right? We're all just trying to survive. You would not be able to live without attaching to your parents, right? And as little kids, we're so studious. We're analyzing, we're observing, we know what's up.
Yes.
You want to know all your shit? Ask your child, ask your kiddo. Okay, so how does mommy show up when she's stressed?
Oh, yeah, they'll be able to tell you immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of person am I around new people when we meet them? They'll tell you. They'll tell you everything. The girls have me like totally pegged.
Which is amazing and probably really fucking annoying too.
Really annoying. Really annoying. Because, man, it has been really eye-opening for me. And there's a couple of things that I want to come back to you because you said like really good stuff. The secondary gain. Okay, so secondary gain is key. I'm always looking for that when I'm working with my clients. Okay. You say you want to get out of debt, but you keep overspending. So you say that you want to get out of that, but there's some sort of itch that's getting scratched underneath every time you overspend and rack up your credit card debt, right? You're getting some sort of there's a primary gain that we can all see.
Yeah.
Well, I just like to overspend.
Yeah.
My parents overspent, And then there's the secondary gain, which can be a number of different things. Perhaps it is we were very poor growing up and my parents were very critical of rich people, wealthy people. And if I make more money, my family will be really humiliated and they will probably not want to talk to me anymore. So I don't want to make money. So I'm just going to keep spending and spending and spending and keeping myself in the hole.
I feel like each of these things look different, depending on what it is you're kind of working towards and what that secondary gain may be, but it really comes back, it sounds like, always to this connection and acceptance and belonging that we as humans crave on a base level because it's how we survive. And we are wired to survive. Very intelligently, our body is wired to survive. And this is something we need to pay attention to because we can get stuck in survival patterns that are not so healthy and helpful. But at the end of the day, it's this want for connection. And if I do X, then I may be rejected by my family, by my friends, by my partner. And that is the scariest thing possible. And so how do we, navigate coming back, reclaiming ourselves, kind of deconditioning, pulling off those layers, those heavy layers that build up over time while still feeling safe enough and connected enough that we're not going to completely lose our community, which is, a whole other thing, but I believe can very much be accessed through somatic work, through work with the body, which I do want to get to because we both have a love for this area. And in fact, I think actually looking back on it, you're one of the first people who sort of introduced me to this concept when I was in your Against the Grain program, kind of the first, at least understanding of it from an actual kind of structured way. But as listeners may have gathered so far, we've both had pretty similar experiences in leaving jobs and relationships that were good enough to find something that really lit our souls on fire. And I think especially as women, but this is also a human thing, we are kind of taught to be happy with good enough. That as long as he's treating you decently and there's no major crazy issues like abuse or things like that, then you kind of should just be happy that you've got something, that you're being taken care of and that kind of thing. And same thing with a job. Why are you complaining? Things are pretty good here. And I think we both, but I call absolute bullshit on that because women are pure magic and they can create pure magic when they lead from their intuition, when they trust themselves enough to make big, bold moves. So on that note, I would love it if you could talk a little bit about whatever feels most connected to you, whether it's leaving your corporate job to take on coaching, or leaving your marriage to then find this more aligned partnership with Michael? Like, what did it look like for you to say to yourself, this is good, but I want more?
Okay. Well, I think I'm really on the relationship sort of thing right now. So I'm going to take the relationship train.
Perfect.
Yeah. I think it's important to acknowledge that where your idea of what it looks like to connect with people starts very, very young. Right. So, and I love what you were saying earlier too about like, you call bullshit on women feeling a lot of guilt about wanting to leave relationships for if like they want it. It's good, but I want great. The same thing with money with women, right? God forbid you want more money or to make more money or be rich, you kind of have to justify it. And, or there's been this sort of theme that like, well, why do you want more money? Why can't you be happy with what you have? So again, everything always goes back to very early on with how you were related to and how between you and your folks, and then also, or how you related to money and how they related to money, right? So you have to go back and take a look at first, what was the relationship, right? What was I taught? When it comes to closeness, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to choosing partners, when it comes to how to be in a relationship. The same thing goes for money. So when we look at my marriage now, for those who don't know me, I met my previous partner, my ex-husband, April of 2020. It was the beginning of the pandemic. I just sold everything and moved to Los Angeles. I was, at the time, didn't realize it, but I was really on this path of discovering more of who I was and living from my intuition, connecting from my intuition. And I left a home that I'd lived in for 14 years in Toronto, in Canada. And it was an amazing time. And I met this wonderful man and decided, we were going to be in a relationship. But you talk about intuition. My intuition told me that relationship was not it from a very early on stage, right? So yes, a lot of women are told are told stay, right? Have you given enough time? You're being too picky. It's supposed to feel really hard, which it is, but hard, it can be different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I think there's two parts to it. It's yes, we need to stop telling women that, but we also have to have women take a look at, why did you choose that person? Right? What did your intuition tell you? And, the majority of the women that I work with and come to work with me, when I ask them, what does your intuition feel like? They're like, I don't actually know what that feels like. Great question. Okay. So that's where we kind of start. Connection to your body, connection to your own unique experience and how you feel as it relates to people and your environment and your surroundings, and everybody's going to be a little bit different. And that is your compass, right? So there were two things playing out in my marriage that I can take responsibility for. One was I was playing out a pattern. I grew up in a home where my parents did not really enjoy each other's company, should not have been married. Those were my role models.
Yeah.
And also, that was it. And I also grew up in a babysitter's home for most of between the age of 6 weeks to age 10, 6 days a week. And she fucking hated her husband.
So that imprints on you. Like, totally, consciously or not, that this is what a relationship is. It's hard work and you might not like your partner, but you might not. Yeah. Yeah. It should feel really intense. You should not like them. It should feel hard. There should be a lot of disputes. There should be a lot of fighting. There should be a lot of challenging this person. All of those are different shapes that I watched my parents take with their bodies, and my babysitter and her husband. A lot of contracting, a lot of frowning. And I memorized a lot of that. And if I go onto a date where I'm like, wow, this is great. You're wonderful. And I'm smiling a lot and I feel relaxed. Well, that doesn't feel familiar. That feels boring for someone like me in the past. Yes. And unsafe. I find it so funny, but also a little scary, how our nervous systems are safe with the familiar, but the familiar isn't necessarily what is best for us long term. And I think it's a bit of a mindfuck when you realize that in your relationship. You're like, well, why would I be attracted to drama and chaos? And why, when I find someone who's safe, does it feel so boring? That to me indicates this isn't the right match. And I luckily have learned over time that is not true, but we have to slowly retrain our nervous systems to become safe with the unfamiliar, which could feel at the beginning boring and therefore like a threat. And it can be very discombobulating that like, why do I keep attracting these men? Well, because your nervous system thinks that's safe, even though it's not.
Totally. Yeah. And, to your point, I'll give you another example that'll help to put that into perspective, because I've said to many women, and I had been told too, you choose unavailable men because that's safe for you. And I'm like, the fuck? Like I was like, how does that even work? Like the math wasn't mathing. I was like, how is that safety? That's the most unsafe thing. Well, now I've got 2 girls, and I was starved of connection. There was very little physical touch as a little girl. And my 2 kids now, they want me a lot to soothe them.
Yeah.
So they've got a big feeling. And my youngest Vivian, she'll come over and she's like almost 8, and she'll put her arms up and say, up, up, up. She's got some big feeling and she needs me to, she wants to touch our chests to each other. She wants to be close. And for someone who grew up starved of physical touch, that is the most unsafe moment for my body right there. I go, what? And I energetically want to push her away because it's super vulnerable, those moments for me, to have a little girl in my arms who I am soothing. Yeah. And there's also some resentment because I didn't have that. I want to make her pay for my pain from my childhood.
Yeah. And then I imagine then shame comes in.
Shame comes in.
From like, well, that's horrible. This child wants to connect with me. And on the surface, I want to connect too. Why am I shutting down?
Exactly. But in our family, the family that we're building and our values, that is safe. But in my little child's eyes, that's very unsafe.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of interesting aha moments where I'm like, isn't that funny that even positive things can feel so unsafe?
Wild. And then that's where I think that mind-body disconnection just grows. Because it's like, I can't understand. And now I'm going to go into a loop of over-analyzing in my mind what must be wrong with me, because I don't understand how, like, the body part of this equation. And so then you get in this loop of intellectualizing feelings and emotions in your mind that can be, I won't say it's easy, but simple if you drop into your body and can start to create, like, teach your body safety, to then be like, to bring in that grace and compassion for yourself and be like, well, of course, that's why. And that doesn't mean that I'm now just going to be like, nope, you can't hug me, you can't touch me. But you can be a bit softer with yourself of like, okay, I'm going to do this. And if I don't feel great while doing it, I understand why, and then can maybe like work on training my system to feel more safe with that.
Totally. And to come back to what you were saying before about how women, are conditioned to not want more, right? Like, yes. Basically, like, it's good. Don't mess it up. Don't get too excited. Don't want too much, right? Yeah. Too much, not enough. Yeah. Right. And I think what you just said there is really important, Hannah, because when someone comes to me who's experiencing that, a woman comes to me, my first instinct is to go back and to understand first what was some of the conditioning and the subconscious beliefs that they have about wanting more, about relationships, about money. Like, we got to get to okay, well, what do you believe about money to begin with? Or what do you believe about men? One of the biggest values I have is get people understanding that whether they knew or not, they made all those choices because of the programming and the conditioning that they probably couldn't see. And if we can get people to take responsibility, not saying, hey, it's your fault, but like, oh my God, I had no idea that I was starved of connection so much that I ended up getting in these relationships where nobody touched me. Like, I was chasing these guys, going like so crazy for them to just see me. And they were starving me of anything. right? So we've got to like get people, because once you put the ball back in a woman's court, she then feels powerful. Oh my God, that was something I didn't even realize I did. I can have a lot of compassion for myself. I see where that happened, how that happened. Now I can start to retrain my nervous system, or not even retrain. It's remove all the shit that's not yours
Yeah.
so that your real self, truest self reveals itself, because it's in there. You don't have to remember, it's just buried.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, totally. And it is. It's like my experience in the past few years is a complete testament to that. And I think this theme of discomfort is a really important part of this conversation of going all in on yourself, because it's very easy to watch from the outside, whether you're watching someone online or you're watching a friend or whoever it is, take a big leap, whether that's, leave a misaligned relationship and then find their person, or make a career change, or build a business. It's very easy to watch from the outside and be like, oh my gosh, they're killing it. They're crushing it. Look how amazing they're doing. And yeah, with the rise of people being a little bit more honest online, maybe they're sharing with you the bits that haven't gone so well or the failures. But what's missing from that, or at least what I've experienced is missing from that, is the feeling of discomfort that comes with choosing to do things differently. That could be choosing to start working out regularly. That could be choosing to work on your relationship with using food to numb. Or it could be building your dream business. It can look like anything. But something that I have learned recently as someone who's always been a huge dreamer, I've always dreamed big, big, big things for myself. I've always known that there's bigness inside me to be let out. But for most of my life, discomfort stopped me from doing anything serious when it came to taking a leap on myself. I'd make little kind of risks, but nothing too crazy. And what I've learned is that you don't feel ready, then do the thing. You do the thing and then start to feel more ready over time. And I was very much someone who waited until I felt ready. And by felt ready, I mean that my emotions aligned with what I wanted to do, the physical sensations in my body aligned with what I wanted to do. And that has kept me playing very small. And I'll give an example of this. I know I want to be a speaker. I know that that's something that I want to do in my life. Right now, any speaking gig I go to do feels like I go into a collapse freeze response in my nervous system. Leading up to it, I'm shut down. On the way to the gig, I'm I don't want to do this. And it's not even oh, I'm nervous and I don't know if I can do this. It is a full body shutdown. I can't even speak to my partner. He's trying to build me up and be this is going to be so good. Are you excited? And I'm just
shut up.
I'm not home. I'm a ghost. And at the beginning, I read this as, oh, I thought this is something I wanted to do. And it's not. Yeah. Clearly it's not. And what I have realized is that is my system trying to keep me safe, because this is so deeply unfamiliar to me, but it is not a sign that I'm not meant to do this. And what I think can get really tricky in this arena is that until you start to tune in with your body and notice the sensations, which over time, as you build that relationship with sensations, you are able to then decipher and discern, because sometimes it can feel the same. Something actually dangerous, like staying in a relationship with a partner who is abusive, or, staying in a relationship with a family member that is not safe for you, can feel the same as going and doing a speaking gig. But those are not the same threat. And so I'm so passionate about talking about this piece of discomfort, just mostly because I'm living it. I'm in it right now. And I don't want people to look in and think, well, she must have felt ready to do that and that's why she did it, but I don't. So I'm just not going to be able to do that, because it's no, I feel uncomfortable pretty much every single day right now. And I work really hard to regulate and bring in my tools and things like that to help it feel a little less uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean that I'm not doing what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can you speak to your experience with that when you've taken leaps? Like, what does it sound like in your head? What does it feel like in your body? And how have you navigated that?
Yeah. I'm going to reference a book that actually Michael's reading right now that came from my mentor that I think is terrific. I recommend it to so many people now. So it's called The Gain and the Gap, and it's by Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, who
Ooh,
started Strategic Coach. These guys are really brilliant. And what I think that they've done is they've created this like really compassionate model for high achievers like us to get out of our heads and out of this perfectionism and measuring ourselves against the end goal all the time.
ooh, ooh.
Yeah. And like, so I'm looking at your situation right now, Hannah, and I'm like, okay, well, Hannah knows for all intents and purposes that she's not in any danger in her life right now. Things are pretty like, she's created a lot of safety. She's attuned to her body a lot more now. She picked a partner who she knows she can relax around.
Absolutely.
She set up her days in a way that there's more time for rest and recharge.
Yep.
Right? There's a lot of things that you've put into place that now your body is able to go from an hyperactive state to more of a rest and digest state. You know how to get yourself there. So, like, it doesn't feel like you're being chased by the tiger all the time, right?
No, not, I mean, a little bit lately, but yes, in general, everything you say there is absolutely correct.
Whereas if I'm working with someone who's still got a lot of bodily trauma that they're hanging on to that, makes up the majority of the way in which their body is shaped. Very lean, fit people like myself, very rigid type bodies. We have a very interesting way of managing really intense feelings.
Interesting. Can you share more on that?
I can, and I can, like, this is stuff I've been studying for years, and I started to put it all together with my girls now and myself. And so I'm going to park it for a second. I'll come back to body shape. But for you, my love, now it's kind of this like measuring yourself against the end result is what's putting you in a state of spinning out, getting a little bit down on yourself, hyperactive, hypoactive states, right? Fight, flight, freeze. What you want to start to teach yourself to do, and this takes time, and it's a practice really, is you want to measure yourself against how far you've come.
Yeah.
Only.
Which I'm shit at doing.
Right.
I know that.
Right. Exactly. I'm saying it like, oh yeah, I got this down pat. I hate stuff like that. I'm like, no, not at all. It feels like I'm underachieving.
So hard because it's like, it feels so simple to just say, look at everything I've done. But there is something, and I don't know if it comes with my neurodivergency or just generally a human. I mean, I have a quite poor working memory, and I really do, like, I don't remember a lot of stuff, but I really struggle to measure that distance, because it's like, the way I look at it is like, I'm with myself every single day. And so even though between now and 6 months ago, huge changes, I've seen them incrementally happen every day, every hour, and so it doesn't feel as huge. It's almost like the analogy of, this is the best one I can think of right now, someone losing weight. If you haven't seen them in 6 months and they've had a body transformation, they've been going to the gym, you're going to be like, whoa, you look really different. But if you see them every single day, you might need to look back on a photo in order to see how much they might have changed. And I find it so difficult, but I have done one exercise once that actually made this much easier for me, which was literally just sitting down and writing everything that has happened. Not even thinking about everything I've achieved, just everything that's happened in the last year or 2 years, whatever time frame you want to put around it, to reset that understanding. Anyways, beautiful. I interrupted you. Apologies. Yeah. Please keep going.
Yeah. And so the gain and the gap, right? That's what they talk about. People who live in the gain are looking at, okay, yesterday I actually had a really great day. Or let's say tomorrow I look back and I say, okay, well, today was my first day back at work in 3 weeks. I recorded an amazing podcast, right, for the Too Much Not Enough show with Hannah O'Donovan. It was amazing. Then I met with my producer for an hour. And wow, that's 3 hours of really focused work after not having done work for 3 weeks. I was working on myself, which was insane, which is another thing, right? Oh, that's not enough. It's got to be billable hour work, me in front of my laptop, on my phone, making stories, making reels.
Yes.
So tomorrow I'll look back on today and I'll be like, wow, I'm living in the gain because I'm looking at it as I really progressed personally. That podcast episode was really killer. You know, it got me back in the flow. I met with Lauren, my producer. We got some things done. I'm good, right? I'm this much farther along than I was yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. Gap people will look tomorrow, will be living in tomorrow, looking back at today, being like, but there were so many other productive hours that I could have been productive and doing more things. And I was off for 3 weeks. That's insane. Like now I'm behind, right? And guarantee Hannah worked longer than I did after that. We recorded a podcast. She might have even edited it. Like she probably did another podcast episode with someone, like the comparison game.
Oh God.
All of that. So, but the way that I now understand, like I, as a strategy in my body, decided that I was never going to hold on to money. I was going to make it and then I was going to spend it all. Always.
Hey.
Always. I don't want it. I want it gone. And the way I look at money is I kind of put it on a pedestal. It's like the be all end all. And I've always thought that if people saw me with all kinds of nice things, then I would be enough. So God.
Are you in my head?
Yeah, it's pretty common, apparently. Well, welcome to the club.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I would hear of people having these long-term plans with their money. So they'll save, but eventually that money will get spent. They would say that to me. I save my money, but eventually that money will get spent as well. And I was like, when? Why not now? I need to spend it. Like on what? They're like, well, I'll save for a down payment on a home. That could take me, 5 years. And then eventually it will be spent. And then I'll be down to zero. And then I'll save again for another 5 years for the next thing that I desire. And then I'll eventually spend it. Right. But I've been always, so that's the gain. That's thinking in the gain. But for me, I've often been living in the gap with money. How quickly can I get it? How quickly can I spend it to look like I'm doing really well, to look important, to look like And it doesn't resonate with me that someone would save and not spend it right away. Right? And for you, living in the gain in your work, like I just recorded one podcast with Kathryn yesterday. It was perfect. It was all I needed to do. It doesn't resonate, right? Just like saving does not resonate for me.
Yeah, no, you're
it's insane.
Literally, Kathryn, I've said this so many times, your ability to just see the thing, not only see it, but pierce into and share the piece that a person needs to hear in the moment. Like I said, we haven't spoken for weeks and I've just been spinning my wheels, like almost feeling like I'm in like an old version of myself. And you have just absolutely nailed it. I am living in such a gap right now. I'm constantly looking, okay, where do I need to be financially? I'm so far away from that. And my days need to be jam-packed, which is for me as a projector, the exact opposite of what I need my days to be. When I find spaciousness and rest is when I create my biggest magic. But I've been like caught up so much in this gap. And I am so clear now that my work and maybe those listening are having their own aha moments, that the work is to really think about the gain. And I think that connects to like the general concept of gratitude and seeing like the things in life that you are already abundant in, which can be very hard when we exist in a society that is very capitalist focused, where it's constantly like you go online, you go outside, you leave your house. You don't even need to leave your house because you can just look at it on your TV or whatever, selling you more stuff, subliminally telling you you're not enough unless you have this, unless you have that. And for anyone who feels that, like it's so normal. It's so normal.
so normal. It's the way in which we're marketed to, you've been kind of duped. So have I. It is up to you to take your power back again.
Yes.
I want people. So,
Correct.
I'm sitting in front of this laptop. I have not had my laptop open in 3 weeks. I have spent a total of maybe 3 hours on Instagram in 3 weeks.
I definitely want to talk about your time in Costa Rica and like kind of what's come out of that, because I can, without even talking to you, the shift is, I can feel it energetically for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm spending a lot of time on a beach drinking Modelo's.
It does help for sure.
It helps. And like watching the sun go up and down. Well, I'll tie it back to the theme of this show. So the theme of your episode today, or our episode, was going all in on yourself. And when we planned this holiday for our family a couple months ago, I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought it was going to be a working holiday for me.
Interesting.
And what ended up happening was we arrived at our Airbnb, our Wi-Fi was down, and Michael and I didn't do the research to look at, getting a SIM for an international country. So and we don't speak Spanish. So we're like at Walmart, we're like, SIM card?
Yeah.
So ignorant, bunch of ignorant white people. And we ended up having no phones for 4 or 5 days. No computers, no phones. Unless we went to a store in town in Nosara and got their, connected to their Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So what was going to be a working holiday, ripping out all these podcast episodes, because I also have a new podcast that I'm launching.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like strategizing. My big world domination turned out to be one of the biggest defrosts of my life. I had no idea how burnt out I was. I was completely burnt out to the ground. And man, didn't see it. And so suddenly, I have to be off my phone. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice. And what started as 4 or 5 days turned into 3 weeks. I totally unplugged from everything. I have no idea what people are doing right now. None. People that I really admire, I follow, I listen to their podcast episodes every week. I listen to nothing. I couldn't even tell you. One of them went to Japan, I heard. I'm like, Caroline Baudino went to Japan? I had no idea what people are doing. And what I realized was I was caught up in this sort of cycle of, I had lost a lot of confidence after my divorce and didn't really see that. I had really lost a lot of confidence. I had told myself that everybody thought I was such a failure, that I'd really mucked this up and that I had to prove myself now. And I had been stuck in this proving sort of texture in my body and shape in my body. And it had me on Instagram, a lot checking out other people. I was comparing myself. I had lost my ability to just be in my own lane, think clearly about my own stuff. And so it had me spinning my wheels a lot and pivoting a lot and changing a lot. And it was wild what I saw. And, we talked about going all in on ourselves. Right now, I'm a mom. Not right now. I'm a mom now forever. The old me would be like, I'm a mom right now and I might get out of it. But
yeah,
that was the old me coming through right now.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. No, Kathryn, you are all in on this mom thing.
I'm all in. I got the necklace. I was showing Hannah that my eldest made my early Mother's Day gift, a soapstone necklace that she carved yesterday with K on it.
Honestly,
and I'm going to
so
wear this
sweet.
so proud. I know. And she told all her friends were with her when she gave it to me. They're like, are you going to give it to her?
Stop. I can't. That is so freaking sweet.
I know. It's everything you dream of, really. And then you get it and you're like, this is a lot. Depending on what you've been through. Oh, Lord. So I ended up being on this, I ended up going all in on the girls on this trip, which actually meant going all in on all the girls in my family lineage. It was going all in on my mom, going all in on my grandmother, who committed suicide when my mom was 17. That her little girl, going in all in on my great grandmother. Like, I just went all in on all these women, and I was like, this is not going to happen anymore. I'm going to stop it. And clearly I needed all this to happen. And it all started with getting off of social and completely being submersed in this presence with these girls and being the most uncomfortable I have ever been in my life, because I grew up believing that I was a nuisance. Children are just like a hindrance on you.
Yeah.
And then I'm with them 24/7 for 3 weeks. And the amount of times that I was like, this is so beautiful. I'm so grateful. I'm really growing. I'm in the gain. It's really weird. It's really messy. It's very slow. The amount of times I was in the gap as well, where I was like, I don't want to be here. I want to get out of this. I just want to go and be alone again. I just want to travel and live in Mexico and build my empire and get rich, which I can do too as a mom. But so all in has really changed for me. All in is healing the wounds that have been passed on generation after generation in my family, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And the foundation of my business was built up on this belief that I'm a nuisance. I am not enough. I don't deserve a lot. Life's always going to be really hard for me. I'm always going to have to fight. And boy, did all that show up a lot in my life and in my business. I just, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's, huge. And thank you for sharing all that. And more than anything, thank you for staying with it and not running away, which, you can't fault a human from running away, because we weren't, like you said earlier on, we haven't been taught how to sit with these big feelings that come up in life. We haven't been taught how, some people obviously have, but generally how the nervous system works, and that perceived threat and real threat can feel like the same thing. And just all of these things that are normal, but like you said, it is each of our own responsibilities to see, recognize, and choose what to do with these things. Life happens to you until you realize that it actually happens for you. And once you shift to that it happens for you piece, everything changes.
Totally.
And I think if people have gathered by listening, that doesn't mean that it's all rainbows and joy and ease all the time, which is a dream I definitely believed in for a long time. My healing journey was based on a destination. When I get there, I will be happy all the time. I believed, even subconsciously, there was some sort of Narnia that I would get to where I wouldn't struggle. It wouldn't feel uncomfortable. That's just not reality. But I can say that when you do the work for yourself and step into these new versions, because it's constant evolution of new versions of you, which are really just remembering who you always were. You're not becoming someone else. You're re-becoming yourself. I find a stability to ride the waves of life in a way that allows me to recognize that I want to run and shut down right now, but I'm not going to. Or I am going to shut down for the day because that's what I need. And then tomorrow I'm going to get back at it. And that, I think, is the beauty of slowing down. Really, what you're saying here is slowing down, and I will take to the grave. If you have an intuitive ping that you need to slow down, follow that.
Yeah.
Do it, whatever it is you need to do in order to slow down and create space. That is likely where you are going to find the thing that you are desperately looking for and desperately chasing, or that you didn't even realize that you were looking for.
Yeah, you might not have the intuitive ping. You might just be like, I'm spinning my wheels.
Yeah.
And then find someone who you maybe can feel like is a person who's more grounded, and they can help you perhaps say, why don't you take a break from Instagram for a week or something? I had no idea I need to slow down.
Yeah, true. That's true. We don't always know. You're right. And that intuitive ping doesn't always come through so clearly. But I think that's much better said. If you are spinning your wheels, if you're like, why is this just not working? I don't understand. If you're saying to yourself a lot, I don't understand, this is not making sense, that is likely your intuitive ping to shift gears, or to, like you said, find someone or something that will help you create grounding from which maybe the next peace will become clear.
Yeah. And the other signs that I'll share, and we talked a little bit about body shape, and then I know we probably have to wrap this up because Hannah and I could probably make a 7-hour episode if you're willing to listen.
I mean, it would be juicy all the way through, I know for sure. So let us know if you want an extended episode.
Yeah, we can do a 2.0.
Yeah.
What was happening for me was like there's 5 ways basically that I've seen in my clients, and psychologists have studied this as well. 5 ways in which we'll start to relate to other people when we're feeling overwhelmed and we're feeling unsafe. So we were talking about, hey, if you're getting intuitive ping to slow down, do that. Okay. But that's probably not going to be the case for, I don't know if it's been the case for me sometimes, but this one, it wasn't there. I was like, no, I got to hustle. I remember saying to Michael before we left, we got to have a conversation with the girls because I have to be on Instagram now 10 hours a day because I'm pivoting. Yeah, there was no slowing down. In fact, I was really building a case for separating myself even more. That's what was happening. I was running. I had my running shoes on, dude. Yeah, the kids could see it. Oh boy. So, gosh. So what the sign for me, and there's like 5 different ways in which we all respond to overwhelm that are not very helpful, but we started doing when we were kids. For me, it's rigidity. I will start to pick on everybody, set a lot of structure in the house, get really rule followy when I'm really overwhelmed. Okay. I'll expect everybody to be following suit, right? I'll get so just like hard.
Yep.
Okay. That's a very good sign. That is the sign. Kathryn is burnt out. She's overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create safety, but I don't know how in that moment. So I'm just going to become like the authoritarian drill sergeant. That's what was happening. The other thing that I do is I get aggressive. Okay.
That's me.
That is like, man, a lot of compassion for you and for me and other people, because you and I are inherently extremely loving. Like people know that about us. But there's a side to us when we feel flooded with emotion or sensations in our body that we will get into this like aggressive tone.
Aggressive, judgy. My heart center shuts down. I'm like, yeah.
My energy comes up and out, like it wants to push against you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Lee, if he ends up listening to this episode, he's gonna be like, 100%.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing before we went to Costa Rica. I was very rigid and aggressive, hard to be around. And bless me, I couldn't see it at the time. And, everything happens for you. I could have been really pissed about the internet for those 5 days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So Michael was like, we got to get on the phone and call these guys. How dare they? We're paying top dollar. And I'm like, the fact that you are so enraged about not being able to use your phone right now is a really good indicator that there's something here for you to look at a little deeper. So the other 3, okay, so you get really rigid, rule followy, right? Performancy, and you expect everyone to fall in line. And you're measuring how much you love someone is by how well they can follow your rules.
And is it also meet your expectations? Like follow your rules, I guess, is also meet your expectations. Yep.
Yeah. And your expectations are gospel.
Yes.
Everything else doesn't even exist.
I like to think that I'm like special and unique, and then I hear shit like this and I'm like, oh, I'm just like a cookie cutter of every human ever.
Right. So, and then there's the aggression. You get pretty aggressive with people. Maybe you posture. You get big, right? The energy's big. You have broad shoulders. You like kind of dominate. I will do that. I'll dominate people when I'm feeling scared and overwhelmed. Another one is you might endure. Okay. So some of the listeners here, they might recognize that sometimes they'll hunker down, like the energy kind of pulls down and into the ground and you feel kind of like you're stuck in the ground, like in quicksand or like in cement. And inside you're just like, you just take it. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to take it. I'm going to have, very little boundaries. On the inside, though, you're saying, you can't make me. You're like, okay, you can't make me. But you're like, I'm just going to take it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good sign. You're a little overwhelmed. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need to go off Instagram for a little while, right? And how you'll know this is it'll be happening with your family or your partner, or your clients or your team. It's going to be it's always going to happen between you and others.
Yes, totally. That's what I notice for sure. And then when it gets to like me and strangers, like when I start judging people on the street, I'm like, oh, okay. We're really shut down. Our heart center is not open at all. What is happening? Like that's my indicator when I haven't been able to catch it earlier, when I'm all of a sudden like annoyed by someone just existing.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to be in a lot of resistance towards hearing anything new. Yeah. It's like, why even bother? Or you're an idiot.
Yeah.
The other two, with the rigid and the aggressive pattern, we tend to still function very high.
Mm-hmm.
Knocking out of the park. Let's start a new podcast. Let's pivot in our business. Like it's insane. But
so it looks from the outside, it looks like you're crushing it.
Well, and in our society, people are praised for that. So I was being praised like crazy. And it was just fueling this rat race that I was on. So it was hard to stop. Because I was getting a lot of praise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last two, one of them is compensated merging pattern. So if you see yourself kind of being a chameleon blending with other people, people like this are very loving, right? And they compliment you so much. Like, Hannah, your hair, right? Those nails, fabulous girl. But like people who show up like that, it's people pleasing. Okay, we call it the compensated merging.
Yes.
You're compensating for feeling really inadequate. And their way of feeling safe is to make other people feel really good. Okay, if you're doing that a lot and you're so exhausted and you've really lost like where you end and someone else begins, a good sign you're burnt out. Okay, you're going to do it sometimes, but if you are just like, I can't stop.
Yes.
It's with everybody. And then the last one is leaving. So folks will basically, and when we talk about body shapes, folks who leave a lot, they're very thin. They're like, they blow like a feather in the wind, piece of paper, like, woo.
Yeah.
You know, now they might just leave energetically. They're just not there. You're like, where is this person?
What is this concept theory called? Like, is it?
So these are the 5 personality patterns. And this is the next level stuff.
Amazing. Because it also, this like directly mirrors your nervous system states, and specifically the polyvagal theory of like, you can take each one of those and create like, it's either a state, whether it be fight, flight, freeze, collapse, or a blended state, which is what I love about the polyvagal theory is it's like, you can be in blended states, which means that you're tapping into both branches of the nervous system, you know, which is like you're relaxed and engaged, which means that you may be in your play zone, your joy zone. But yeah, but I love that it takes it not only to another level, but also kind of, I think, puts form around it that people can connect to maybe a little bit more than the scientific side of the nervous system states. It's like, oh, this is very relatable, this language. Yes, that's what I do. That is a behavior I can identify with.
Yep. Exactly. It's all the things that you're learning about the nervous system and about trauma that I've had to learn and put it into simpler terms. So yeah, in closing, you know, we were talking a little bit about how do I know if I'm burnt out? 5 ways right there.
Yeah. Amazing. That's like gold, actual gold. Unbelievable. Okay. I have a couple of kind of rapid fire questions for you if you're open to it that I kind of want to wrap up on. What is something that you used to tone down or hide that you now lead with?
Softness, kindness.
Love that. What would you say to someone who is afraid of taking up too much space?
Man, I totally feel you because I have lived in a very contracted body my whole life. So I got it. And I would say it's worth working on with someone who can help you use your instrument in a way, your instrument in a way that's just going to blow the doors open and turn all the lights on. Yeah, it's the answer to all your problems.
Something I would like to add to that is actually something you said to me, Kathryn, which has really stuck with me when I was going through like being afraid of showing up more authentically, which meant taking up more space, was the thing that you likely feel drawn to do more of, like, or be more of, is probably the thing that subconsciously other people expect you to be doing that you're not doing yet. So you think that you're all of a sudden going to like make this massive, like disruptive change and people are going to feel a little startled by it. But instead they actually might be like, oh, there you are. Yeah, I kind of expected this from you all along. And they won't necessarily say that, or they might not even be conscious to it, but energetically, they're going to be like, oh, this is a better match. And you might see things starting to like align better in your life when you just say the thing you want to say and stop trying to sugarcoat shit or whatever that looks like. So that's been huge for me. And I keep coming back to that. Okay. If someone is standing at the edge of choosing themselves, what would you want them to know? Like if they're right there and they're like, I know this is what's next for me, but I am fucking scared.
God, I can only speak from experience here. I mean, I've seen it in all of you guys too, but okay, this is my DNA. It's coded in my DNA, so it won't work for everybody, but I would say take the leap. Like take the leap, do the thing, sell all your things, move to another country, go on that date with that guy during the pandemic, who I ended up marrying. It all happened for me. It wasn't like, I don't think I made mistakes. Like I needed to go through all that. So I would say take the leap. That's it.
Love it. And again, to say it's unlikely that you're going to feel ready to take that leap in your body. So do it anyways.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I tend to put myself in precarious situations where I don't have the option.
Yep. I'm a little bit like that.
I love a little pain. So part of that is wounding. And part of that is, my soul came here and it was a very fiery, very capable soul. So it's a little bit different for me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's a really good point. Like, get to know yourself and your system and what works for you. And we talk about, that's pretty much what we talk about on this podcast. So definitely check out some of the other episodes to see some tools or some things that might help you kind of get to know yourself better and what fires you up and what will help you take the leap. Okay, well, finally, can you share how listeners can get more of you, can get more of Kathryn Ducey?
Yeah. This is so funny. My producer asked the same thing. She's like, so what are people buying from you now? Like, what are you selling? I'm like, I do know, but I don't know at the same time. And that's a really beautiful place for me to be. I don't have the for sure answers. So I've been a life coach since 2018. I've worked one-on-one with hundreds of women around the world, and it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I was meant to do this work. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I believe that I was living too much behind a laptop and people were getting so much of this wisdom, and it needs to go farther. It needs to reach people around the world. I just have a lot to share.
Yes, agreed. I know you do.
I have a lot to share. Thank you. So right now I'm in this place of, I just want to get more of this out through my podcast, the Really Honest podcast, which episodes are going to be released starting next week, which will be the beginning of May. Yeah, it's taken a little bit of time. And so people can start to listen to one episode a week. And then besides that, there are things that are happening that are coming through me. I mean, I'm probably going to be taking on more one-on-one clients because it is a gift that I have. Intimacy is my jam. And when you get in my energy, I just see people and they end up telling me things that they've never shared with anybody in their lives. And it just frees them up.
100%.
So I know that's going to be a part of it, but it's going to be a much more, might maybe be like a higher ticket now. It's a very special experience and I pour my heart and soul into it, as Hannah knows.
Yes, 1,000,000%.
Yeah. And it's well worth it. Everything that I bring from all the coaches I've worked with, through all the work I'm doing and still continue to do.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also going to be some other things that were coming down. So I'm okay. It's kind of career suicide as a business owner to be like, I don't really have anything right now to tell you to come and do with me. I don't do this at home, kids, but we're going to leave it at that.
You know what? If you have Instagram, definitely follow Kathryn there because whatever's coming is going to be pure magic. I know it. You want to be the first to know when it comes. Thank you so much, Kathryn.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.